At this point, I really don't care what people say about my Isekai life. I am loving it, especially with this episode, which basically was just chopping firewood, but that's the type of stuff that I would do if I was in a video game Isekai-like world. Menu systems, you're a tamer with slimes that can do the impossible. Would I really go out of my way to go conquer the world, go save the world from a demon king? No. I would go out of my way to enjoy tasty meals and the luxuries that only someone who's powerful in this world could deal with. And in return, you would help an entire village that has basically been on death's doorstep ever since the frost came to their door. I have to say, watching this man channel his inner Luffy from One Piece, this man enjoys food so much that his entire purpose right now is just to help a village so that they can continue to treat him to amazing meals. The dude who has been criticized in the anime community for having no personality, and I'm sure people will still try to say that after this episode. And while he's definitely not the most energetic character in this season, there's nothing wrong with having a more dry main character, because ultimately, I can look at some of my favorite games, Fire Emblem, Three Houses. The main character that you play, Byleth, has the personality of the wood in this episode. There's hardly any personality, but it has so much great character surrounding that character that you play that ultimately, you're not going to say that Fire Emblem Three Houses has no personality because that would be ignorant. A show like this, he's constantly surrounded by slimes and Proud Wolf and all these other characters. So up to this point, it's never felt like an issue to me because similar to so many video games that I've played and enjoyed, it just felt like the main character that you normally play and you would see a story around them and, you would enjoy it for that. But an episode like this really shows me that he's not just there to be dry and boring and just kind of be like a self-insert. He's just a dude who had a very depressing life in his original world. There's a moment in this episode that he compliments or just kind of acknowledges that these people very much are worried about him, and it just goes to show how much better this world is compared to his original, because they actually care and don't want to see him die from overworking or anything like that, from like exhaustion like Japan is definitely known for in so many different work fields. So this episode, where you really let him take hold, and I think he had just as much personality as the slimes in this episode, something I never thought I would say. But given the fact that he's just so gun-ho about, he goes to this village, he heard some great things about the food there, and when he learns the crushing realization that they can't light a fire because the wood's basically, you can go cut down wood, but it's not going to be ready for cooking for basically a year of drying it out. And the fact that he goes out of his way to use this amazing attack that cuts down an entire forest. He dries the wood. It's too dry, we'll put some moisture back in. And just to see him be so happy, we've never seen that up until this point, because up until this point, he's been very much worried about people relying on him and basically being worked to death. And this is the first time that he's felt like he's found something that's worth fighting for. And as simple and silly as people might want to say it is, that he's just going out of his way for food, one of the biggest things that people enjoy in their life is eating. If you're not enjoying and excited about what you're eating, it's sad, honestly, because that means like either, you didn't cook a good meal, someone didn't cook a good meal for you, maybe you're struggling to get good ingredients. The thing that I think most people want to look forward to is great meals. And for a dude that is now able to kind of carve his own path in life, do what he wants. Yeah, he doesn't want to be relied on, but it's different because he's choosing this one. It's not a grave apocalypse level threat as it started out. I mean, granted, we did end last week with the cult episode. Seemingly the cult is probably involved in that tomb that they found, the entrance that they're about to explore. But this is because something he chose, not something that was kind of forced on him. He went out of his way to do so because he likes the food that much. And I think that's what makes him so human in this moment, because even though I've been perfectly fine with him being a very dry and doesn't really radiate personality, he's just a pretty normal dude who doesn't go out of his way to get super excited about everything, which I can personally relate to. But it's been fine because he's been surrounded by an amazing supporting cast. I think often with the anime community, they want every main character to be like the best of the best, or they're groundbreaking with their personality, or they lead a show. But I think shows like these prove that it's almost like a slice-of-life adventure in terms of where this guy's going in his isekai life. And I think it's perfectly fine having bubbly personalities around him as he's just kind of trying to fit in and trying to adjust to a new lifestyle after literally being worked to the death, seemingly. And to see an episode like this really let him break out of his shell and to show him, like, he's not some emotionless asshole. He's someone who understands where he needs to help, but ultimately he's trying to find his new path in life. And this village, honestly, has made him feel a lot more happy than we've ever seen up to this point. And I think food is probably the most genius way to get him to break out of his shell, because, seriously, How many times have we been in a isekai fantasy magical world that looks beautiful? You think, damn, I would love to go there. But often we say that because it just looks like a fun adventure. But sometimes you get those rare cases, and I think the Luffy comparison that I'm making, like you just look at that food and you say, that's a giant slab of meat on a bone, and holy shit, I can understand why Luffy or any of these characters are so excited about their meal. And that's exactly what they did. I thought it was hilarious to see the almost religious imagery painted as Yuuji and the Slimes and Proud Wolf and what they were doing. That shit was cracking me up. They had like 3 or 4 moments where he just had an out-of-body experience and was in this like religious trance. I'm surprised he didn't start a religion for these guys in the middle of the episode, but just to see the number of people from the chef to the main worker who kind of collects the wood and stuff, and seeing how dumbfounded they were that this skinny, not looking that strong tamer was able to just not only get days worth of wood for a single person in that town, but the entire village. The fact that this dude can basically stand out like a sore thumb. Very much we saw that with the dragon stuff, we saw that now with this. But it's great to see that this time it really felt like he did it because he wanted to, not because it was forced upon him that here's this apocalypse level threat, here we go again, people are forcing me to do things that I don't want to do. Instead, he's like, I'm going to this village specifically. I want to eat their food. I want to travel the world and eat all these different cuisines. I have the ability to do so. I have the resources to do so. Let's do something for me for once. This basically could be a vacation for a dude who literally was worked to the bone and hated his life without any second thought. And to see an episode really let him feel like he broke out of his shell is exactly what it needed. And I'm glad it took to this point to get here, because it really highlights just how depressed he actually was. And it's interesting to see the difference in his opinion of going into that, whatever that door leads to, a cave, a tomb, you know, hell, who the hell knows, versus his reluctant behavior to take care of that dragon in the previous episode. Because for him, it's like, he has to do it. There's only one person capable, and he's not happy about doing so. Versus, okay, you know, what started out as collecting firewood has now, holy shit, you know, there's some crystal shenanigans going on that's causing a ruckus in the forest. I'm gonna do this because I like their food. And people might make fun of that, but that is a very human reaction, that for a dude who now has a second chance at life, he's now experiencing clearly food he's never tasted before, and he wants to have this man's best cooking, so he'll do whatever it takes to protect them. And I think that's a very human reaction, all things considered. And I think anyone who still tries to claim he has no personality is definitely overlooking a lot. And him not having the most exciting personality really isn't an issue when you look at the characters surrounding him. And it's really no different than I think almost half of the video games that give your character no voice or really no interesting personality, and the characters around them are what give it that life, and there's no issues with that. That's why I really enjoy this show. I would honestly say this episode actually took it up a little bit for me. I've been enjoying it. I think it's been a perfectly fine and enjoyable show that wasn't trying to be groundbreaking. And while this episode definitely wasn't groundbreaking in any way, it definitely gave it that human element that takes it from just being enjoyable to a pretty solid watch, all things considered. And I'm excited to see, because you saw him smile a lot. You saw him, you know, the vocal performance fluctuated a lot more in terms of the way he enunciated or the way he moved. He just felt a lot happier in this episode, and that gives me a lot of hope for where his character could go now that he's starting to open up and actually enjoy his second life, versus every time we've heard him refer to his previous life, it sounded like he was a moment away from jumping off a building, and honestly, I wouldn't be shocked to the slightest if that is what happened, given how depressing his life sounded. Either way, I'm excited for more of my Isekai life. I enjoy talking about it. There's definitely some fans who are right there with me, and other people who maybe just this isn't the show for them, which is perfectly fine, but I'm excited for more. Let's see where the cultist plotline goes, and we'll take it from there. But thoughts down below, leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you're new around here. So next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.